Writing is hard. You'll hear a lot of people faff around trying to come up with some poetic way to describe the writing process, but cut out the nonsense and waffle and what's left is, writing is hard. And for such a creative job, there are a lot of rules. What makes good dialogue?
Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?
What makes bad dialogue?
Sometimes I think we're all your children.
What makes a good character arc?
You're unworthy of your title!
And what makes a naff one?
On time. And then the ether stuck itself inside.
However, the main thing that most writers stumble over is exposition. That nasty little thing that every story needs, but no one likes to write. Today I'm looking at some Doctor Who examples to explore how exposition can be used to hook the attention of an audience and how other times it can turn your viewers away in a matter of seconds. This is Doctor Who, How to Write Exposition. Exposition is a fancy word for information the audience needs to know to be able to understand what the hell is going on. It is in every story ever written, and it is an arsehole. Whenever I work with writers, exposition is the one thing I always have to give notes about. And I'm a hypocrite, because I struggle with it too. I know good exposition, I can spot it when I see it, but actually implementing those techniques into my own writing is hard, and I have to put a lot of effort in to make it work. Now, Doctor Who has a lot of exposition. It has to, it's the nature of the beast. When you have to pack a sci-fi adventure into 45 minutes, it allows little room for subtlety. The audience needs to know the information, and they need to know it quick. This is why it's one of the best examples to look at, study and learn from, because after 60 plus years of being on telly, there's been some cases where it's been used masterfully, and other cases where it's been pretty dire. The Series 4 Library two-parter has a lot going on. It's incredibly busy, jam-packed with great characters, sci-fi concepts and wonderful monsters. There's a lot of information that the audience needs to know for the story to work. However, perhaps the best yet most simple example of exposition is the introduction of the Vashta Nerada themselves. If you boil it down, the premise of this episode is simply, shadows are dangerous. That's it, that's the bit. Without this there's no story, so the audience needs to learn quickly that shadows mean death. This is first introduced on page 12 of the script.
For God's sake, remember, if you want to live, count the shadows.
Now there's a whole other scene cut between the opening titles and this scene, so we get this information even quicker on the screen. And good, the cut scene is completely unnecessary and we don't miss anything in its absence. Now this moment works for two main reasons. One, the dialogue. It sounds silly, but this scene could easily fall flat if worded differently. Don't step on the shadows or you'll die is basically the same line with a completely different feeling. Don't step on a shadow or you'll die sounds naff. It is very exposition heavy and clunky, you could feel it. And maybe you're thinking that no one would write a line like that because it's shit, but trust me, they would. It's surprisingly very common.
Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
But secondly, it sets up a mystery. Suddenly your audience is wondering what's in the shadows. It adds a bit of intrigue and suspense. It's hiding the main concept through atmosphere. And the answer to this mystery doesn't come until page 51 when we're finally told what the Vashta Nerada are. Between this we are told their name, we see one of their victims and we know they live in the dark, but it's all drip fed to us, little moments but no real concrete answer. It makes us wait. So when the Doctor finally describes them, it's no longer just an information dump, it's an answer to a mystery that was set up at the beginning of the episode.
This is not a shadow, it's a swarm.
And we learn the rest of the rules too. We're not outrightly told nothing can stop them, but instead it's presented to us like this.
Dalek, same for the Ice Stalk. Vashta Nerada, run.
The subtext is that nothing can stop them, but it's delivered in an atmospheric way and it ups the tension and the suspense rather than killing it. Also we get a lovely bit of visual storytelling in the form of a chicken bone. Rather than just tell us how quickly they kill, we see it. It's the old show don't tell trick. This is it. Plain and simple, yet very effective. Okay, next one. I call this one the quick setup because that's exactly what it does, set something up fucking quickly. This is probably the most simple, easy method and the one I find most infuriating when done wrong. Take one character that knows something, take another one who doesn't know the thing, have character 1 explain it to character 2 so the story can progress. That's it, you've seen it time and time again, it is the simplest trick in the book. And it's done very well at the beginning of The Unicorn and the Wasp. Donna doesn't know that Agatha Christie once went missing, a lot of kids watching at home probably don't know the lore of Agatha Christie either, so the Doctor explains it quickly and done. We're all caught up. Also kind of setting up a mystery here as well, so bonus points. However, time and time again, you will see scenes where one character will be explaining something to another character that should already know. It's why Interstellar winds me up so much. They should know some of the stuff they are explaining. They are on the fucking mission. They should know it. They should have read the notes. Doctor Who is actually very good at this one because it's literally built into the concept of the show. Clever alien takes a companion, usually a human, through time and space. Immediately you've got a character who needs things explained to them because so much is new, allowing the exposition to feel natural in the story. Sometimes these moments go on a bit too long. It should be quick because otherwise it does become too much of an info dump and you begin to feel the writing, but I'd say for the most part Doctor Who gets this one right. Okay, here's our first how not to do it on the list. Now, the Chibnall era is a complicated one. Some people love it, others loathe it. Some people will be fuming that his era is even on the list, and others will be fuming it's not on it more. Now, I don't like the Chibnall era, so if it's your jam, feel free to skip to the next chapter in the video. But also don't, because I'll miss ya. Chibnall is good at exposition in his plays. The exposition in Broadchurch is pretty strong too. As I've said before, Chibnall is a good writer, just for me, not a good Doctor Who writer. And one of the reasons for this is because he struggles so much with exposition in the show. There are a lot of moments I could use for this video. The explanation scene in The Timeless Child is painful due to it literally just being constant explaining with little substance. However, one moment very early on in his era always stands out to me. In episode 2, The Ghost Monument, we get this bit of information on page 25 of the script.
Flesh-eating microbes, millions of them living in there.
So that's the premise of the scene. It's very obvious, there's not much subtlety, but whatever, one line won't harm a whole episode. And at least it's not boring, it's promising something exciting. Our characters have to cross the killer water in a rickety old boat. One wrong move and they're dead. Honestly, that's a good pitch, there's a whole episode worth of tension in that. However, the issue is the whole journey takes only 6 pages, and nothing happens. Nothing. We get some talking, some very unsubtle character backstory, and then probably the worst crime of the scene, the characters fall asleep. They just have a nap. By the time Ryan wakes up, they've crossed the water and they're out of danger. What the fuck do you mean? This bit of information,
Flesh-eating microbes, millions of them living in there,
is completely and utterly useless. It's not needed. It changes nothing. Cut that line out and the entire scene remains the same. Now you could argue it's trying to build tension and threat, but when you have your characters easily nod off, it doesn't make me feel like they're in a scary situation. This is exposition for the sake of talking. What makes this even worse is the script itself literally teases you with a more exciting scene. The tiny boat moves through the channel surrounded by 2 enormous mountains either side, and the deadly water below. It reminds the reader, it's literally wanting you to know the water's dangerous. It's one of my pet peeves when a script promises something and then refuses to deliver. Like, it's not an episode I like, but the Shakespeare's Code promises you witches and you get witches. This line, and I'd argue the entire scene as a whole, is entirely pointless. Everything needs a purpose in a script. It has to be there for a reason. Usually either for plot or character, but also it could just be incredibly funny or fucking cool. That's okay too. But this is nothing. I want to see the scene that was promised, a terrifying journey across the sea, perhaps even part of the boat begins to get eaten away, perhaps it slowly starts to sink, someone falls in, dies horrifically, danger, threat, tension. Danger, danger! Something. If you are a writer, go through your script and be honest with yourself. Do you have any broken promises within your story? Do you suggest that something's important when in fact it could easily be cut? If so, cut it. Don't promise dangerous water and give me a nap. Now, The End of Time is a mad episode. It is basically the entire RTD era crammed into a ridiculous 2-parter. It has some absolutely magical moments and some utter nonsense. However, it is pretty much agreed that the strongest scenes in the episodes are the quieter character moments. And it's true, they are so well written, incredibly emotive while still being in character, and yet absolutely crammed full of exposition. One of the most loved and remembered scenes literally starts with an exposition monologue as Wilf starts telling the Doctor a story about his life, completely unprompted.
1948, I was over there.
Most writing guides would tell you that this would be bad and you should cut it, and yes, this is something that could easily be written poorly, but Russell makes it work. Firstly, this opening,
1948, I was over there,
isn't just a random story. We've been building up to Wilf giving the Doctor a gun over the last episode and a half. It's a moment that's been teased, but he can't just come out and say it, so this is basically him building up to give him the gun. He's nervous, overwhelmed and scared, so he starts talking about another time he was scared.
it's like a blizzard, all them bullets in the air.
The subtext to this speech is, I'm bloody terrified. It's such a simple yet effective way of conveying that emotion, mirroring the present with a story from Wilf's past. Lovely. However, the best bit of exposition that makes this scene so effective is actually in part 1. On page 41 of the script, we get this line.
You never killed a man.
No, I didn't.
Bang. Straightforward information about Wilf's past. No faffing about. She outrightly says it.
You never killed a man.
And this is fucking good exposition because sometimes just saying something outright is effective, and this hits hard. But most importantly, it now frames the entire plot Wilf is about to go through. In 5 words, Wilf's arc is entirely set up. The man, the soldier, who never killed, now has to get the one man who never carries a gun to do the thing he refused to do all those years ago. The "you never killed a man" line is so quick, and yet it sets up all the emotional payoffs to come. This is exposition at its most effective. Quick note, please do not take a shot every time I've said exposition in this video, you will be dead. Okay, let's do another bad one. Right, come here and I'll tell you, I love Russell T Davies as a writer. The recent era of Doctor Who has been interesting, but that doesn't take away from the amazing telly that he has given us over the years. He is usually incredibly good at exposition and introductions. The first 15 minutes of It's a Sin is a masterclass in writing. It introduces all our main characters, their backgrounds, their dreams, and the story to... Why the fuck did I sing dreams? And the story to come. That is incredibly hard to do. Most writers can't do it. It is just an incredible 15 minutes of telly, and if you are a writer, I recommend watching it and re-watching it over and over again just to study how sharp and tight that script is. Not a word is wasted. It's honestly perfect. The Reality War is not. Now, there are so many issues with the Reality War. I've spoken about it on the channel before, so go and watch that if you want to hear my utter disbelief in this episode of telly. However, one of the major issues that affect it, apart from the nonsense, is the utterly obvious exposition. Now, there are quite a lot of scenes I could have picked to discuss this, but one stands out to me most because it's obvious not just in the writing, but also on screen. The director doesn't know how to film it, and the actors don't know how to perform it. Towards the beginning of the episode, we get this scene, a scene where all the main players within the story are in one room. Now this could be great. One of my favourite things in fiction is a dinner party scene for this exact reason. Get all your characters around one table and sparks usually fly. Instead, this is really where the Reality War begins to crash and burn. This scene has a lot of problems, not just exposition, so let's quickly break those down first. The Reality War script hasn't been released yet, and honestly I'd be surprised if it ever is. With the reshoots that the team seem determined to pretend never happened, I'd be very surprised if the screenplay is ever put on the BBC writers' room. Could be wrong, usually am, but it would shock me. For this reason I have to go off what is shown on screen. And let's be honest, that's not a lot. The characters don't do anything. In this whole scene, all they do is stand around and wait until they have a line. If they ever have a line. Hello Yasmin. The Rani suddenly appears in Unit HQ and the guards don't react. No guard tries to shoot her, no guard even points a gun, they just stand. Everyone just lets the Rani speak. Kate doesn't try to prove her authority, Mel doesn't have a panic attack, the Flinks just doesn't in general. It all just plods along, one line after the other with no tension, atmosphere or consequence. And this is more a directing thing than a writing thing, but just look at the blocking. Dear God, they are all in a line. I have been to drama school, I teach acting, this is rule 1. Don't stand in a fucking line. There's no depth, there's no shadows, it's all just blank and plain and soulless. Look at Bonnie Langford, bless her, she don't know what to do. Though for me, the worst part of the scene actually happens before the Rani even turns up. We get this line of dialogue.
Mel, I am sorry. It is the Rani.
She's still alive.
This tells us pretty clearly that Mel has met the Rani before. And as we know she once travelled with the Doctor, we can guess that that's probably when she met her. So what we don't need is this line.
I fought the Rani when I travelled with the Doctor all those years ago.
This just isn't needed. We know. Mel saying she's still alive told us this information. Also, just listen to the line again.
I fought the Rani when I travelled with the Doctor all those years ago.
That's clunky. You can hear it. You can hear it doesn't sound right. And if you can't, just try saying it out loud. There's too many words. It's too on the nose. It doesn't sound how someone would normally speak. And then we get this bit of dialogue.
She's ruthless. Worse than ruthless, she's indifferent. The whole universe is just an experiment to her.
Why is she saying this? Like, it's obviously there to try and give us, the audience, a bit more information, but why is Mel saying this? What's fueling the speech? It doesn't sound like she's scared, it's too technical. Angry? Maybe, but not really. I don't know what fuels this moment, it feels too static, both in terms of writing and directing. Take this scene from The Stolen Earth, for example. Sarah Jane hears the Dalek's message. She begins to cry and shake. And through this one little moment, we're told two incredibly important things. She's met the Daleks before, and they terrify her. And then, this line.
There's nothing I can do.
This tells us that Jack is scared, but also that the Daleks are ruthless, unstoppable killing machines. He doesn't need to tell us that though, because he already has, in one simple line. If Mel had walked off, perhaps into the corner or into the bathroom, and just took a moment to herself, perhaps a little cry or really has to fight to hold herself together, this would actually tell us so much more. One, we would know that Mel is scared, something we haven't seen from her in the new era, but also it would tell us all we need to know about the Rani. Seeing someone visibly shaken just by her name alone gives the villain so much more power. For all the faults of the Reality War, I think this scene is one of the worst, due to it basically stopping the episode in its track. It looks boring in terms of its blocking, and it sounds boring because it's basically just an info dump. Talking of info dumps, This one should not work. It goes against nearly every bit of advice a writer has ever heard, and yet it's honestly a pretty perfect example of how to write exposition that means something. In the series 10 episode World Enough and Time, the Doctor spends most of his screen time standing around explaining the rules of the spaceship, and in doing so, basically explaining the concept of the episode. The Doctor starts explaining on page 23 and doesn't stop explaining until page 48. That's fucking madness. Over 20 pages between the start of the exposition to the end of it. That's nuts. This should not work. However, it does work because of two reasons. One, it's broken up. Instead of giving us all the information in one long scene, we cut back and forth between the Doctor at the top of the ship and Bill at the bottom. This just breaks it up and allows the pacing to feel a lot quicker. But two, and probably most important, is that the exposition actually has consequences. The Doctor standing around chatting actually affects the plot moving forward. The longer the Doctor explains, the longer Bill has to wait. She has to watch him on a shitty little monitor as her life becomes more and more dangerous. It uses the Doctor explaining information as a way to create suspense and tension. Therefore, this makes these scenes feel more urgent and gripping than the usual info dump. To put it simply, exposition kills Bill. It's also a great little bit of character building as well. In these scenes, the Doctor is being clever. He's enjoying the fact that he's the one who understands it all and he's the one who gets to explain it to others. He knows Bill is waiting, he knows it will be for years, and yet he still has to be the cleverest person in the room. Exposition as plot. That is bloody clever. If you're a writer and you've been told that exposition is bad, I beg you to ignore whoever told you that because they're probably an idiot. Exposition is just one tool a writer can use. A script with absolutely no exposition would more than likely be utter shite, because information is important. But like any tool, it's how you use it. Don't use a hammer to fill up a kettle. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please let me know in the comments. And if you're going to take any advice away from this video, please let it be this.